Hello, Internet. Greetings. Wanted to talk a little bit about today about one thing that I've been thinking about, just checking my screen. But actually, the thing that I've been thinking about, and I sort of wanted to note, also check my watch to see if my head is on straight, or rather if it's cut off. But the thing that I've been thinking about a little bit lately is just the idea of constraints and how that can be really frustrating. For example, this is nothing new for me, but I often struggle to get to bed on time, meaning I have a tendency to stay up late, much later than ideal. And so that can have a pretty large and often negative effect on LDC, learning to code. And it's sort of my ability to learn, retain, master information, concepts, so on and so forth. And so as I moved to France for this coding bootcamp, I had been staying up super late back in the US in Boston. I had my own schedule. I was fortunate enough to have that for several months before moving to France. And so I found that I'd have this tendency of like staying up till midnight, 1, 2, and then it was fine because I would get up at like 10, 11, 12, like whatever. I just basically add on like 8-ish hours. Sometimes I get less than 8 hours, sometimes I get more. Often it was probably less, but like I had a super flexible schedule, so I could sort of adapt accordingly. Now fast forward, moving to France, in Paris, like starting this coding bootcamp. Well, for the first time in a long time, I'm in class again. Class starts at 9 point pile, meaning like 9 sharp. And so you've got to get there like 8:55 or ideally like 8:45 a.m. And it was like a big adjustment. So there was this like time change, I like jet lag a little bit, but I got over that. But I just like found myself sort of falling back into these, I don't know if they're rituals or habits or whatever they are, but I was just like staying up super late. So I would like stay up till 12, 1, 2 again, but this time in like Parisian time zone. And I would just be really tired because I'd have to get up at freaking like, I don't know, like 8. Now I sound kind of like punkish, but I was just like not getting enough sleep. And so this is sort of compounded by the fact that, as you may have guessed or inferred, like I have a pretty active mind, meaning I think a lot of thoughts. Not saying that those thoughts are really useful. It's just like there's a lot of them. And so I find it like sort of no matter what time I go to bed, whether it's 8 p.m., which I never do, or 10 p.m., which I'm trying to do now, or 12 or 1, like my brain is often just on. And this can be super frustrating. So sort of like how does this relate to learning to code? Well, when I was like first in this program, it's like really I feel it's really intense. Maybe it would be super easy for you. No comment there. But I was having like a pretty tough time just, I think, being immersed in the coding environment, full time, 10, 12 hours a day. And this was often on like 5 to 7 hours of sleep, which is just like not enough for me physically to perform at my best. And so what I've been trying to do is I like set up what I call the 30-day sleep challenge. I mean, I set up a 30-day sleep challenge for me. Like, I'm not saying that I'm the one to come up with this. I'm just going to check my watch again. Oh, yeah. Looks like we're still recording. Woo! And so, like, after 3 weeks of just getting really poor quality sleep while trying to focus on coding full time, I just, like, had enough. My co-founder Ryan had done this thing where he tried to set a bedtime and a wake up time where he would get up at the same time every day. I think he also picked 6 a.m. and he's been doing it, don't quote me on this, but for like 60 days. In any case, like I thought this would be just too hard. It would just not be for me because like even when I'm really tired, I don't necessarily fall asleep. Again, part of this like active mind. And so I was really afraid of the idea of having to get up at 6 a.m. every day for any amount of time, but definitely for multiple days in a row. Because I thought that would just mean for whatever period of time that I picked, I would just get less sleep. And I'm proud to say this is like week 4. It's probably, I think, like day 22, day 23. And I've been getting up at 6 a.m. every day. Actually, 5:55 is when I wake up. I have 2 alarms, 5:55 and 5:59. And it's like, I think mentally it feels freaking amazing. Like, it's so cool to be in charge of my own destiny, so to speak, but to like do this mental challenge for me, just for myself, and to have bound it so that I sort of take it one day at a time, giving myself mental permission to give up if I want, but thus far I haven't wanted to, and framing it in that in 30 days I'll sort of review how it's going, the pluses and minuses, and whether or not it's sort of positively affected my broader life, but also just specifically LTC, learning to code. And so I guess this is just to say that, like, it's interesting, sort of is this like paradoxical thing while being in an intensive immersion coding environment where I'm not getting enough sleep a lot of nights because, silly me, like, I still stay up till like 11 or 12, and then 5:55 gotta wake up, and I think I just have to accept that. Like, I just have to accept that there's this binary choice. It's like, are you going to respect the 30-day challenge, yes or no? And if so, like, what are you going to do about it? So, I won't go on too long. I had a couple strategies of, like, how to try to trick myself, gamify my life into going to bed earlier. And if you're interested, we could talk about that in another video. But it's just been a really interesting sort of experiment and a series of experiences. This is just to say that, like, I think sleep hygiene and like getting more rather than less sleep, or sufficient rather than insufficient sleep, is a bit, sort of a major component to LTC, learning to code. So, what do you think about sleep, if and at all, how it might relate to your process of learning to code, your process of sort of trying to be more technical, if that's sort of what you're doing? And do you have any tips or tricks? Do you have any like ideas of sort of things that have worked for you, or on the flip side, sort of things that haven't worked, things that maybe you thought would work but haven't really panned out? So anyway, in summary, this video was a sort of a broadish discussion just about how sleep relates to code, more specifically sort of this 30-day challenge, sleep challenge that I've been trying out since moving to France, since being in this intensive coding environment, and sort of, I guess, some of the pluses and minuses. The pluses being, like, it feels really good to sort of accomplish this thing every day, and to like do this mental challenge where it's like me versus myself, me versus the universe. The sort of the downside being there's a number of days where I do not, and I repeat, do not get enough sleep. But I'm trying to think of it in sort of like a bigger picture, and sort of like establishing good life habits in terms of getting better sleep, and how that might empower me or enable me to sort of take a longer point of view and a longer sort of perspective on learning to code. Because I don't think it's going to be a 3-month process where I, master code, and then get a sweet dev job where I'm paid like a 6-figure salary, or, start a $1 billion company and am the CEO of a unicorn. Anyway, I'll stop making those sort of snide comments, but have a great night, and I will talk to you again soon. Okay.